Hello everybody of Activation. I'm Activation. Alright, so here we are, in a little creative void world, kind of, with iron blocks everywhere. I have set up a few zero-tick generators. This is the basics of zero-ticks video. So I've had a lot of suggestions saying, hey, you should do a basics of zero-ticks, or a basics of tree farming. And they both kind of go hand in hand. So I'm going to be going over the basics of zero-ticks. Mango did a video about this way long ago. Before even observers were out, I'm pretty sure. But it is extraordinarily outdated since observers added quite a lot. Alright. So, what is a zero tick to be exact? A zero tick is a redstone pulse that both powers and also depowers in the same game tick. If you don't know what a game tick is, it's basically a repeater tick, right here, but it's half of this. So it's half of this sort of signal. So, it is 1/20th of a second. That is what a repeater delay is. A repeater delay is 2/20ths of a second, or 2 game ticks. So you might refer to those as one redstone tick or one tick, or whatever. But in this case, it is one redstone tick, or one game tick. So in one game tick, this redstone will depower and power. So when we power this. This is a normal zero-tick gen that you might see in a lot of channels or a lot of systems. As you can see, it's basic, it's the simplest. But as you can see, only this piston activated. Which you might think is really weird. Like, how can... Well, obviously, this iron block would power this piston right here, and then this piston right here is updating that piston. So it should technically work, no? So you can even see the redstone pulsing right there. So this might confuse you. Alright, well then let's try this system right here, right? So we just add another piston in update order, and it'll work. So both pistons will power. You might think that this is some locationality bug with Redstone Dust, which I'll explain later on. Or you might just think, you just might think something else. Okay. This is actually due to this updater piston right here. This updater piston is very important. Alright, let's go over why. So if I add an update chain of 2 pistons now, instead of having 1, like I had before, I have an update chain of 2, and power this, then, well, the same thing will happen. So this block is right here, doesn't power, as you can see. Even though, theoretically, if I were to power this normally, the piston does power, right? So, what do? Alright, we're going to add what we call block events. So these 2 pistons, what you might say, are block event delay. They are basically they are delaying what happens in the game tick. Basically, there are more phases in the tick. That makes any sense? Technically not, but you get the idea. All right, so let's extend it to maybe 2 pistons over here. Then let's try that. So instead of an update chain of 1, we have an update chain of 2. At least with these certain pistons. Okay, power that, and the piston does power. But if we only add 1, then it does not. As you can see, doesn't power. I'll even make a redstone lamp. So, if we power this, doesn't power. If we add an update chain of 2, it does. The reason for this is this redstone pulse right here is theoretically longer, technically longer, because there is more delay inside the game tick. And as you can see, this redstone block emits a really fast redstone pulse. So as you can see, that gets there almost instantly. And you might be wondering why. It's a regular pulse. It should still take around, should take, maybe an observer pulse. But it's actually instant. So the same tick that we power that we power these 2 pistons right here, that piston will fire and power. So as you can see, power this, it'll work. One way to tell if something is a zero tick is if you grab a block, and you grab yourself an armor stand, or something, or an entity of some sort, and you place the armor stand right here, then you press the button, and the armor stand is not moved whatsoever. Just not moved. It is in its perfect location. Let's try that again and see again. Alright, as you can see, perfect location. So, you might think that might be normal, so let me grab the same exact system, only use an observer power pulse. An observer pulse, grab an armor stand, right here, update the observer, and the piston, the armor stand is still actually not there anymore. It's not inside that block. However, in this case it is. So, The reason for this, I think, is because when you're moving a piston forward, the piston is the same game tick that you power is already starting to retract. And it takes a piston 3 game ticks to retract. Yeah, technically 2 game ticks. I don't know. You can go into basics of that and complexity, but I'll explain that later on in the video. This is more simple or parts of 0 ticks. Okay. So we power this button again. As you can see, you get the idea. Alright. So, now we have Redstone Dust, so we can use some really cool dust 0 ticks. So let's power this right here. Wait, why didn't this thing 0 tick? So this is a well-known instant 0 tick system, right? So if I power this, doesn't work. Alright, let's add a block event chain of 2. Does work. Alright, let's try one more. Alright, so what if I try and use, instead of using this button, what if I use this button? And it works, but with only a top piston. Same idea that we had over here. This issue right here. Where only only powered 1 piston, not 2. Alright, so we have the same issue. So we could just fix that by adding more block event delay. Because we have the same idea here. This piston would update first in the game tick. Then later on in the game tick, this piston will retract. Basically meaning this redstone will power and depower in the same game tick. And this piston is delayed by these 2 pistons right here, as you can see. So now it doesn't matter. It's now no longer locational, as you can see. But if we do this, then it is locational. And this is due to a sad truth that is what pistons are, or what dust is. So I've set up this command block line right here, and this command block line is set in say 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way up to 15, right? So if I press this button, you expect it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way through 15 in perfect order. So let's press the button, and in order it goes 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 14. That is clearly incorrect. Alright, let's try this side then. Alright, so you might expect that this would go 15 to 1, which is what it should do. 15, 13, 14. So the first 3, there's already 1 mess up. And then for the rest, there's none. So, dust is locational, basically. So in certain locations, it might be, 6 and 5 messed up. It might be other things messed up. Basically meaning dust is locational and is very useless. Or it's useful in 0 ticks, but it also can be very locational and very bad. You have to work around stuff like this. Right here. Not powering the dust. So now we have another sand 0 tick. So this is well known. If we press a button right here, it'll pulse twice because the repeater's on for too long. As you can see, this works as well. It does the same update order chain as 2. Okay, so if I power this then, same thing happens. Only, as you can see, we have a higher update chain. So let's see what happens when we have an update chain of 1. If we add a piston of 2. So let's see, I want to power this piston, let's add an update chain of 3. As you can see, if we power this, piston doesn't fire. Alright, then let's say, okay, let me add an update chain of 2 instead. So we have an update chain of 1 with this piston right here. Let's try an update chain of 2. This piston does power. Alright, another thing to mention is if we dare 0 tick something like this, if we add our known 0 tick generator right here. As you can see, we have our 0 tick generator that we already know. Okay, so as you can see, if we activate this, okay. One weird thing that you might notice is if we flick this lever and slow down the tick rate. So let's slow down the tick rate. So now the game is running 20 times slower. Activate this, it'll 0 tick, but this piston or this block right here will take longer to get there. Why is that? All right, so let me try that again. So it'll take okay, let me set up a redstone block right there, so you can see this on a redstone pulse. So if we're being correct, then if we do this, then this redstone line will start to activate instantly, as so, right? So if we do this, then technically it should do the same thing, and this repeater, or this redstone dust line should activate instantly. As you can see, it does not. It will take, yeah, it'll take a few game picks. As you can see, it does not activate instantly. And this is because of one reason. It'll take, no matter how fast of a pulse you give this piston right here, it will never be able to push 2 blocks like this instantly. It'll only be able to push the first one instantly. And this is just due to pistons and how they work. There's nothing you can really do about that. So, if you want to get like a really fast line right here, then no matter how fast you zero tick this, it'll still take an additional 3 game ticks, or 2 game ticks, depending on which. I'll explain that later on. Or 2 game ticks to power that entire line. Alright. So, how do we work around this? Well, that basically means a zero tick to this back piston is inherently useless. It'll do nothing but a regular power or pulse like this. This does the same thing as this would do. It'll take the same amount of time, basically. Except for the first block. So, why do people zero tick that piston? Okay. So one thing you can do for a double piston extender is instead just power that piston right here, and then the same game tick that this piston gets here, then you can zero tick this. So that way, this will only take 3 game ticks for this redstone block to get right here. Alright. It'll only take 3 game ticks or 1.5 redstone ticks. Or basically a repeater and a half. A repeater and a half, if that makes sense. Alright. So then we can zero tick this again after 3 game ticks, because it takes a piston around 3 game ticks to retract. Sometimes 2. Depending on, yeah, like I said, I'll talk about that later on. I'll just say 3 for right now. So we can do something like that. Okay. So how might you go about this? So obviously, if we dare try and use a redstone dust, then we power this, and then, yeah, that's all dandy and good, but how else are we supposed to get a pulse right here? Alright. So there are a few ways. So the thing is, this will take a 1 game tick delay because of the player input. Alright, so let's try and move this maybe into a piston, maybe? Okay, let's try this out. So let's maybe try and do this. So that'll do a block event chain of 1. And then we can try and move this in. Alright, actually, let me just do this. It's easier on me. Alright, so this will take 3 game ticks to extend. And by the time we're there, we should have a working system. Alright. Pistons will take 3 game ticks to extend. And the thing with pistons, this is where I'm going to explain the 2 game tick thing, why I keep saying 2 instead of 3 sometimes. And that is because of piston update order. So it'll take a piston 3 game ticks to activate another piston, but it'll take a piston 2 game ticks to activate a repeater, or 1 redstone tick. So it'll only take 1 redstone tick for this repeater right here to activate. It'll also take 2 redstone ticks for this redstone dust to update if you just send a normal pulse through it. It's a little weird, but you'll get used to it. Alright. So now we need to find a way to zero tick something like that right there. And that's obviously a little bit difficult, because zero ticks are hard, and we have a 3 game tick delay. Alright, so one way you might know a zero tick, another zero tick gen that's really useful, that I should probably build up here, that I completely forgot about while I was prepping for this video, we have a slime bud zero tick, as you can see. So if you do this right here, little do you know, this budding system actually works as a zero tick. So let's show what I did earlier in the video. Let's test if it's a zero tick. As you can see, it's a perfect zero tick. 3 game ticks later. Alright, so let's try the same mentality. Let's add maybe a rail line, like so. And let's add a some slime, and, you know, just add like a regular bud right here. So you could actually do something like this, and then, yeah, something like this will work. So let's try this out. Activate this, and so, as you can see, there is a slight issue, and that is obviously, well, for some reason, this piston right here isn't getting powered, or not getting powered at all, which is, well, obviously an issue. Alright, let's try this out like this then, because I realized I was powering the wrong one. Alright, let's see. As you can see, it doesn't work. You might be wondering, oh, why is that? Well, the same thing. We need more block event delay going to this piston. So let's just add like a longer bud chain. So this is the same sort of idea. It's the same kind of bud chain idea. So let's try this now. As you can see, that now the piston zero ticks. Alright, cool. So now we have a zero tick going right there. So you power this, and then same game tick it gets there, it'll zero tick. Alright, now we need to get final block retraction, which is a little bit more difficult. Alright, so how you might want to do final block retraction is another zero tick I'm about to show. Actually, no, I'm not, because that'll be later on in the observer section. Alright, so now we need to find a way to get a zero tick activating right there. So let's figure this out. This will be gametick 3 again. So it'll be gametick 3 again, meaning we could probably do a similar system. Only we need to power it through here, like so. So let's add a redstone block right here, and then maybe something like this. Something like this. I don't know. This is extremely large double piston extender. I'll show you ways to make this even smaller, because it's quite large at the moment. All right, let's see this right here. Let me just get a working update chain. All right, so as you can see, we have something over here. We can just do something like this. This is like a very weird way of doing block events. So I'm doing the same thing. Let's put this in an example. This bud piston will activate then this bud piston, then this system. If you're at 1.12.2 and have Carpet Client or something like that, we right-click this piston. You can see the update order of the slime. This will be necessarily in certain zero ticks and stuff like that. All right, let me just get this zero tick system working now. Like I said, this is very sloppy and like very, very bad. All right, so let's see if this works now. So we have zero tick, and now we have our fully working double piston extender. And that will basically first, the gametick 3, piston will be right here, like so. Something like this will happen. And then retraction, then this will piston zero tick again. So this is the basics and fastest possible. So of course you can send a certain pulse to the system and it'll work fine. Alright, so let us send a 6 gametick pulse to there. As you can see, it is a 6 gametick pulse, as you can see. And it is pretty much as fast as possible. So this is the basics of a double piston extender. Alright, so let's get over more simpler methods of doing a double piston extender. Let's move on to observer zero ticks. Alright, let's go over the same principle as block events. So right here, I have set up a zero tick that uses an observer. As you can see, it's just a sticky piston, super simple. And you might be wondering, oh yeah, but why don't we just do this? Because this will work just as well, right? That powers the same thing without the extra block event, and maybe you don't want the block event. But if we power this, that doesn't work. And you're probably wondering why. So let me even show up another example. Put some redstone blocks there, maybe not with that. Grab myself a lamp. Shown there. Alright, let's try this off. Okay. Add a thing right here. Doesn't power. Alright, so that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because an observer will take the 2 gameticks, right? And this is the same principle as the repeater comparator thing activating after 2 gametics instead of 3, like the Pistons. The observer will get there at gametick 2, and that will be when it starts powering. So you only need a 4 gametick pulse or 2 redstone tick pulse. And you might be wondering, oh, you've already noticed why we couldn't just power that straight, so let's try adding a piston for block event. As you can see, it works now. So it'll work perfectly now, and yeah, it's nice, cool. So this is very useful for maybe bottom sections of tree farms, clocked farms specifically, because, well, input delay is bad, but that's besides the point. So as you can see, we can do something like this, and we can even do another system that uses maybe a bud instead. So this might be useful for people who just want the 4 gametick delay instead of the 8 gametick delay you might need for the 2 tick repeater, if you don't want to do that. Alright, so let's try adding an already on pulse, like so. Let's just try adding an already on pulse, like this. So I'll also go over budding pistons and whatever, because that stuff is very useful. So as you can see, this is a zero tick right here. So as you can see, we just have a normal bud right here. Normal bud. So as you can see, this redstone block is powering this piston like you see, and it's just activating this repeater. And the going backwards system has an extra block event, basically needing it. And you might be wondering what the heck this thing is right here. So now we have an entire line worth of this. So we activate this, then as you can see, this entire line activates, as you can see, perfectly. This is the same concept as something like this. So we add a row of observers, and then a piston right here. And then another piston, actually here, let me change these to normal pistons. If we change these to normal pistons and add something like this, then we activate this line, and it does do a zero tick. So add this right here. So we zero tick this. I use this sort of thing in my universal tree farm, my Dustless universal tree farm. That was my recent upload. So something that will work. All right. So we go right here, And this is the same sort of observer update stack right here, as you can see. It does a zero tick between all 6 of these pistons flawlessly with no issues. This is really nice for clocked farms or some detection-based farms with input delay or no input delay. Observer zero ticks, in my opinion, are not great for instant zero tick systems because they're annoying to do, basically. But as you can see, something like this will work. Alright, that's basically the entire observer zero tick system. So let's try out a double piston extender again. So a double piston extender should theoretically be simpler, because now we have the idea of Redstone Dust, and we now have the idea of observers, and how they can be used. But one thing is very important with Redstone and observer zero ticks and stuff like that. We've already learned that Redstone Dust zero ticks, some of them can be very locational or not locational. So observer zero ticks don't use any Redstone Dust, which is at least some of them don't use any Redstone Dust, which is number one, very laggy in 1.12. Redstone Dust is extraordinarily laggy in 1.12, not so laggy in 1.15 plus or something like that, because Mojang finally optimized it. But in earlier versions, I suggest using as little dust as possible. Alright, so as you can see, the next challenge is to do a double piston extender with no redstone dust. We already pretty much did it right here. As you can see, there is no redstone dust. We are using these sort of zero tick systems right here, which as you can see, made it a lot simpler in our part because we showed this off. So this is very easy and very nice. I'll go into more in depth with these buds later on. They're very useful. Alright, now let's make a functioning thing. So we already know that we don't need to zero tick this back system, but let's just do it for now because it's not hard to do. As you can see, these buds lines are very easy. Alright, and then let's add ourselves a piston system right here to maybe do final block retraction, which will have the same exact timings as this right here. Alright, let me just activate this now with blocks, and then you get the idea. So now we just need to duplicate this sort of idea right here. This is my preferred zero tick system that I use. This is not great for certain farms, but you get the idea. You might be able to switch it up a little bit. Alright. So as you can see, we have iron blocks right here. Cool. Then add piston chain right here, like this. Okay. So now if we activate these two things right here, if we just quickly add pulse right here, like this, these both power. Perfect. Now we just need to get them timed correctly. So the top right here, we have this working, and then we need this working. And we're going to try and do this without any redstone dust. Alright, so you might want to do something different. We can't use the bud system unless you want to do a jank system like this. But let's just see if we can get a working concept first, and then we can work on getting a better system. Alright. Generally, you'd clock these observer stacks, but you don't necessarily need to. So let's just get something right here working. As you can see, this will work. That'll work? Okay, cool. So what I want to do... Well, okay, one thing you might know is if we power this something like this, like that, then the thing tends to lose its block, which we don't want. Basically, because it gets updated too fast. Alright, so to fix that, we can add something like this. We're gonna have piston right here, which has extra stuff right here, like this. And if we update this, well, that's not great because it uses a piston. Give me a second. Alright. Like this will work, as you can see. Like that will work. Alright, so this is just redstone knowledge and whatever that I picked up. Okay. So now we need to activate both of these lines in the same tick. So let me just add a rail line, which is somewhat locational, but not really. It's not locational at all. However, they do have their own little update, of course. Okay, so let's try this out now. As you can see, that worked, and then that worked as well. Perfect. Of course, that won't work as well because we need to add an extra observer right there. Just keep that in mind because of the zero tick I'm using. As you can see, that worked, and then that'll work as its final block retraction. Alright, let's try this with its 3 gametick delay, like this. It didn't really work too well. Let me add a 4 gametick delay. So yeah, it'll still work. You might just need some more block delay on that repeater. I'm not sure, though. But you get the idea. You get the idea, basically. So now you have a fully zero tick powered Double piston extender line. Nice. Alright. This might be able to be used in a triple piston extender. Something like this, maybe. Like this. Let's see. This. Yeah, so it can be used in a triple piston extender. Okay. That concludes observer zero ticks. Next thing to do with buds is just general zero ticking. We already know the general zero ticks. There's not as much to go over with observers, but we've already kind of conquered a lot of stuff over here with the idea right here and stuff like that. Okay. Next up, we need to then take into account dust redirection zero ticks. Dust redirection zero ticks are a lot more complicated and take a lot more skill to pull off, I guess. Not as hard, they're not very difficult, but they're more difficult than the Redstone Dust zero ticks, and they're far more difficult than the Observer zero ticks. Because Redstone, if you want to make these dustless, they're incredibly difficult. Alright, so let's get an idea like this. Let's get an idea like this down. So right here, we might just deactivate this redstone line. And this redstone dust is technically powering this piston. However, this piston right here doesn't realize it yet. So you need to do something like this to update it. So you can update it something like this, so whenever we were to, like, maybe retract this block right here and break it, then that piston will still activate. But there is still stuff like that that you need to be aware of, which sucks. Because if you power that, then, well, as you can see, that piston will still be powered, which is pretty annoying. But you get the idea. You still need to update that piston, so we can add the idea of buds onto the system, idea right here. So now we just need to find a way to update this piston. So let's just try activating, I don't know, a piston right here. Or with a dirt block on top, for example. I don't know. So let's just try activating that. Okay. We activate this right here. As you can see, when we remove this piston right here, piston doesn't power. That's not great. Okay. And we need to find some way of updating it. So let's see if we can add a piston right here to update it that way. So we can add an update piston right here. Like this. Right here. Like this, okay? And let's power it. So we activate this, then this piston starts to power and realizes it's powered. Awesome. So now we need to get rid of, now we need to get to the part where it powers and depowers. We need the depowering part. Now we need that. So the depowering part we can use by retracting this, this iron block. So this iron block could be useful. So we need to retract this iron block, because that way, then it'll do a zero tick. Alright, so let's get to that. We can maybe do a bud line right here, possibly. Like I said, this is all very sloppy redstone. Don't expect it to be too great. Alright, then we can add another bud line for extra stuff like this. Okay, let's see if this works then. As you can see, it's zero tick. And then we can add an idea that we had earlier on. We can then add a piston right here, and something like here, like this. And now, it'll get back to its original position. Now this might be really janky and bad, but it still works. So now you get the idea. This is a pretty bad system. I don't have any set systems that you can use, but this works. Okay. That's pretty much it. So now we get the idea of dust redirection zero ticks. Let's move on to bud lines and columns. So bud line and column zero ticks are a little bit difficult. So we can do one with a general bud line and dust redirection. However, this one won't be dustless because you would still need to update the piston chain. Should be pretty easy because I've done it before, but I don't really feel like going through the effort of doing that. Alright, so let's just get up right here. So now we have the dust right here. I'm just going to do this right here. And the idea with this is as soon as I depower this, this redstone signal will change from a power level 15 to power level 14, which will emit a lot of block updates, which will then activate that piston. That's the idea. Alright. We can then add glass right here. Add a piston right here, like so. Like this. So then we have a bud column that will work. So as you can see, that actually emits a 3 gametick pulse, which is the minimal pulse it'll take to get a piston to extend and retract in this perfectly. It's the fastest you can get. And we can maybe add an additional piston right there. And the idea is, as soon as this dust redirects, it'll power this piston, which will then power this piston right here via QC. And we can add a piston right here to update it, like so. Add a piston right there to update it, and maybe add an additional rail line to update it even further. So as you can see, that did a zero tick. Alright. Now we have an issue of moving this block column down. So this might be pretty easy, but we can do the same exact idea we had down here of powering this piston first, then this piston later in the game tick to get another zero tick on the way down. This one is a little bit more complicated and will take a little bit more brain power, but it'll be still pretty simple. So we need a redstone line right here to go, then to activate this line right here. So this is to take 6 game ticks. And if we know this right here, this piston, due to update order of Redstone Dust and stuff like that, it will not power instantly. So we can add an additional update chain of 2, and then an update chain of 1 right there. Now, an update chain of 1 would ensure that this piston will realize, hey, I'm powered, and by this piston. But the thing is, we've already learned with block events, that if this redstone block right here is moved down like so, then, well, we have an issue, because this piston won't power, because it's not a long enough block event chain. We need an additional block event chain, but the issue is this is activated before all of it, so that makes any sense. We need this one to stay powered. That's why we can add another one right here, and maybe add like a repeater line right here, but I'm just going to add a comparator because it's more lag friendly. Like I said, trying to avoid dust, and specifically high-level dust as much as possible, so we add some water right there. And then we can just add something right here. We've already learned that it's impossible for us to do something like this. This is just general redstone knowledge. Alright, so we then power this. So now we have a 6 game tick system. Alright, then we can use that for a double piston extender and stuff like that. So you activate this. So if we then slow down the tick rate, I'm going to show this off. We power this, first game tick, 3 game ticks later, 0 ticks again. So this is the fastest a piston can zero tick, every 6 game ticks. And we can even set up a player bot right here. So we can do something like this. We can have a glass column like so, and we can add just block upon block like this. And then we can add our general column right here of redstone block, or, pistons like so. We can add a piston on top, and we can have a general idea. Okay, so if we power this right here, okay, so when we push up this piston line, we want to make sure that pistons right here would activate. And of course, we don't want the same issue of this piston, only one of these pistons activating due to block event delay issues. So let's add one right here. Okay. So then you can add the redstone dust right here, and then we already know that we need to add a block event delay chain of 2 at least, and then we activate this. As you can see, this is a pretty simple 0 tick that takes 3 game ticks delay. It's like the bud line, but this one activates every single one, as you can see. Alright, that pretty much concludes it with all the 0 tick stuff. However, if you need any more questions or comments and stuff like that, please tell me in the comment section down below. I'll try my best to get to you. I normally respond to almost every single comment. Okay. If you guys have enjoyed this, please leave a like. If you guys want more, please subscribe. Another thing to mention, Mango's video is also in the description. He also has some more 0 tick generators involving dust and stuff like that. Go check him out. He also does a lot of great stuff with the Pistons series and Sidecraft, and he makes absolutely amazing content. Please check him out. Another thing is just please know I am horrible at explaining things, so if this video was not that good of help, I can try helping you in the comment section, but I'm pretty bad at that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and yeah, please ask in the comment section again if you have any issues. Thank you, and goodbye.